Welcome to Top of the Line. This is the podcast version of our YouTube show. New episodes every Monday and Friday where we talk about audio and hi-fi related themes.
If you have any requests for a future episode, send us an email, totl@abyssheadphones.com. So anyway, we got another question, a viewer question. Hey guys. Hey guys. Hey guys.
Hi. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, guy.
I have this nasty buzz in my system that I can't seem to shake. What kind of things can cause noise like this, and how would I fix it? What normal things in a room can add noise to a system? So yeah, wow, there's a lot of noise sources. Yeah. But there are things that people don't think of. Like I've dealt with this with people over the phone with ground loop hum and something. They add something in the system, and now they hear this hum. And a lot of times what they added isn't even the cause of it. That's the first mistake. It's just happens to be bringing it out to the surface, and it's somewhere else in the system.
Well, at least luckily, headphone systems are usually far less complicated. Because in two-channel systems, you could get issues where things are plugged into different circuits. And maybe they're on different sides of the panel, different phases. If it were on your electrical panel, and as a result, you could have issues on one that you don't have on the other, or you could simply have issues between the interaction of the two. Luckily, that's uncommon with headphone systems.
It isn't really pluggy. You'd be surprised. People can plug stuff into different outlets. The same system, but they'll have an amp in the front of the room plugged into one outlet in the room, and there's no guarantee the same room is wired to the same circuit back to the breaker panel.
Yeah, I actually ran into this exact thing.
Yeah.
Just switched over to monoblocks, and I plugged into one outlet, and then everything else was plugged into another outlet, and I had massive hum.
Yeah, you're on two separate phases of the home, and that's the biggest cause of issue, I think, is try to get the entire system on a single outlet strip or a single source of power. Is, it's not always possible. But if you don't do that, then you need to figure out if you can get everything on one breaker.
Well, there are a handful of people that make boxes that are designed with high-quality outlets that have low contact resistance and whatnot, that have enough outlets you could plug the entire system into one, and then everything's going back to the one line. And that usually solves a lot of people's problems.
Yep.
If you have 12 different bits of gear and they're all plugged in across the room, really high risk of issues unless they're all running back to the same circuit.
Sometimes it's something else on the same circuit, like a refrigerator. They've gotten a lot easier and quieter nowadays because they don't draw 100 amps like they used to, the compressors and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's less of an issue, but still there's a lot of electronics in a home that can introduce noise on the line. And I've had people take extension cords from a different room, entire different room in a house, bring it over to plug their system in just to see if the problem goes away by running it from a different, somewhere else in the home, just to get it off that particular circuit.
That's essentially what I did.
Yeah.
I ran an outlet strip over to
the other side,
and then plugged everything into the same thing.
Yeah, that's all. Everything coming out of one outlet is a safe bet.
It's always a nice problem solver if you could just run a dedicated line, which we have talked about before in another video. But it's pretty cost effective. You just use Romax, whatever, you throw a new 12 gauge home run in just for your thing, and you put enough outlets on it that you're pretty confident you can plug all your gear into the same run. That's a pretty good start if you could afford it. But if you don't own the place, if it's not practical or possible to do that, that's a bit more problematic. Then you probably want to make sure that everything's on one circuit if possible by getting a outlet strip or something like that and trying to plug it all into the same one.
Yeah.
Because effectively it's all going to the same place anyway. So as long as you're not using a very low quality power strip, it doesn't matter quite so much that you're adding that into the circuit typically. But those like $6, $8, $10 jobbers that you get from department stores or whatever, Home Depot, it's probably not recommended.
No.
Those tend to be pretty low quality. It'll work just fine. Depends on the grade of your setup. But something to keep in mind, even something like the $20 or $30 ones, usually they're actually pretty decent.
Yeah, they start to get better.
It's a lot better.
Especially if you stick with name brand stuff like a Trip Light or something like that. They tend to make consistent quality stuff.
You can get pretty good grade stuff that it's got to work just fine for you.
Yeah, having minimal amount of stuff helps out. Like right now, I just keep plugging more stuff into the same outlets. Now I'm out of out. I keep adding strips and stuff because it's like I had a turntable, a computer,
it is a problem.
A headphone amp, a normal amp, a receiver, DVD, Blu-ray player. So now it's getting like too much stuff.
Right.
And there's wires going everywhere, and I don't know what the problem is.
See, that's a big problem.
That's a problem.
In a lot of homes, people don't even know what's on that circuit because it's really hard to figure it out. especially older homes. Depends where you are in the world, but at least around here in the US, older homes typically have very few circuits, and it could be half of one floor, or even mostly the entire floor of a building is on the same circuit. Yep. So you have 30 different lights, 15 outlets, your refrigerator, a wall air conditioner, a vacuum cleaner, whatever. 20 switch mode power supplies and chargers and stuff.
Your
all in the same thing.
Bitcoin mining computer.
Bitcoin mining rig, yep. And that power supply is running full bore. So that AC line filtering is working overtime to try to filter that
then
noise.
Someone in the
that.
house goes in and turns on a blow dryer in the bathroom and it's all over.
Right. Yeah, people have probably ran into this where you turn a blow dryer on and all the lights go out in like weird places. You think like the room on the other side of the house, the lights went out when I turned the blow dryer on in the bathroom. Well, it turns out it's all in the same circuit.
Yeah.
That is true. I never actually looked like what everything's plugged into for my main audio stuff.
Most people don't know until they run into a problem. Until the breaker trips, you don't know what the hell is what.
Well, it's not a tripping problem. I'm just saying what else is on that line.
But I mean, that's the way you find out, right? You turn the breaker off and see, go around and see what dies.
It's kind of hard to do though, because then you got to think about what about this closet light, like every weird obscure thing that you don't think about.
Yeah,
right.
But
you
could
go
do
in
that.
the basement,
trip the breaker, see what turns off.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we should cover too. It's not. Talk about noise sources. There are airborne noise sources. In other words, they're radiating noise in the air. In your system, cable, your phono-stage, the cartridge on your turntable is picking it up like an antenna. Mm-hmm. And like fluorescent bulbs were notorious for that. Any of the before LED came about. I don't think the LED lighting is
They're
so
not
bad.
That bad.
They still have the
they still can make noise.
They still can make noise.
Yeah.
The fluorescents, especially the ones that look like bulbs, they could be pretty brutal. Dimmers. Mm-hmm. Anything that has a dimmer where you could dim a light, in a lamp in line, those are very noisy device, very noisy electronics in the dimmers. They're made cheaply.
Really, it comes down to power in the home. Oftentimes, is your first issue.
Yeah,
that's something to pay attention.
What I tell people is turn everything the hell off, and if the noise goes away, now you know it's external. It's outside the room. Yep. Now you turn everything on one at a time, see if something brings the noise back. It's troubleshooting. It's kind of like. You got to use the process of elimination to figure out where the noise source is.
I think we should dig into that a little bit more, though, because it's easy for someone to say, well, everyone's power is the same, basically. All your neighbors have the same power. You're connected to everyone around you, right? So why does it matter that you have a toaster plugged into your same setup as your audio system? Why does it matter it's on the same circuit or a different circuit? It's all going back to the same place. And that's true. However, since the wire has non-zero resistance, inductance, capacitance, these things tend to get more or less smoothed out over the length of the run.
As you get further away from these sources, things become less critical.
Well, less significant of an impact.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're 100 feet away from something, the line itself kind of acts like a power conditioner to some extent.
Isolated.
It'll filter some frequencies.
Yeah,
a little bit of isolation. So you and your neighbor, you don't share too much of an issue there with your noise. Now, it's non-zero, but it's not a primary driving characteristic, and you really can't do a lot about it anyways.
Well, if you live next to a GM plant, you might have a problem.
Then you might have a problem. If you're next to a big factory that has weird things
just throwing
powering
shit on
off all day.
You got multi-thousand horsepower machinery running on a line.
Luckily that's usually not a problem. Usually it's you don't live in a construction manufacturing
What are
area.
Tesla plants like now with all the robotics? They must have a lot of filtration running in there so that the robots don't mess with each other in terms of noise. I mean,
all car factories have a lot
servo's
of
gotta be
robots.
Too bad. Most of those industrial electronics are pretty hardened for those environments.
Yeah, they're kind of designed
They
to
must
work
have to
in
deal
that.
with noise though on the line. They've got
Of course.
to.
Yeah.
You can actually set up standing wave. You draw enough current quickly, you could set up standing waves on a line and actually burn through insulation. Did you ever remember hearing about that? Like in the factories?
That's a thing, yeah.
You run a problem, you get arc through on the heavier cables because it hits a peak, especially like switching supplies where they all hit a peak current.
In certain situations, that is
something
possible.
like that where you create what do you call it? A counter EMF type thing situation where there's thousands of volts built up on a cable.
Well, it doesn't even need to be a full GM plant. We had one machine at one point back there, and it was, when the spindle would spool down, noise throughout the whole building.
Oh, yeah, right.
It actually took out one of our monitors.
Yeah, did it?
Yeah.
The old Mazak? Not old, it was a new machine. But
Some
it was
industrial
Mazak.
equipment
Yeah.
use
That was
effectively
noisy.
regenerative braking.
Yeah.
So if things have a lot of mass or there's a lot of energy stored in something spinning, for example, instead of breaking it by throwing out waste heat somewhere, because that means you need to make heat and it's unreliable compared to just dumping the power back in the grid. A lot of times they just take the energy, they absorb it, and they throw it back into the grid.
Yeah.
And what that does is it increases your voltage temporarily, right? Because there's going to be some non-zero resistance across the line.
And that increase is modulated by the motor controller.
Right. So you're going to hear that.
It's not perfect sine wave voltage going back in. It's the motor
it's a
noise.
Little
basically
distorted. They're not made for ultra low THD.
No, I could hear it through my computer speakers when the spindles were turning.
In fact, that was the old place we were in. Remember before we built this place? That was a real issue there. It was everywhere. When we built this place, we purposely overspec'd the feed lines coming from the pole pigs into the building.
That's something people typically have no control.
We're running heavy duty line on this building
and it's
so
as
that
far
we
away
get
as
as low resistance as possible to the transformer on the pole to try to dump that noise backwards instead of having it come into our building.
Right.
You know.
Apparently, some regions let you specify low impedance transformers, presumably at a bit of an upcharge from the power company. Oh. But we had a 10 kVA transformer over there at the old building, which was way undersized.
Yeah, how many horsepower was that thing? 30?
Yeah, 30 horsepower.
The pole pigs were 10 kVA.
10 kVA
times
3-phase,
Yeah. They were small.
For the loads we were putting on, it was way undersized, but it never overheated. So,
and the building was built in the 70s or something. I mean, they weren't concerned about, at the time, that power didn't even exist in that building. I remember before we bought the building, I heard that they added the power later.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know what all that went about, but obviously it wasn't a perfect setup. Not when you build new, designed for the amount of current. The electrical panels in here are way beefier than what we had there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
These are huge commercial panels. The other place was kind of more almost not
home.
Yeah, almost homey. Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't made for that 3-phase they added. So anyway, all these trials and tribulations we deal with this power. That's why we're kind of critical about it with a lot of things we do here, and with audio systems, we try to instruct people, and we know the pitfalls. And if you pay attention to detail up front, you can avoid it. You just avoid it up front.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with it. And again, if you add something in the system and it brings it out, that won't happen either. If you again pay attention to detail up front, and you're not all of a sudden running into a hum that shows up out of nowhere because you added some piece that now has a ground prong on it that the old piece didn't. And so now you're throwing extra ground into the system that didn't exist, and having a place for these stray currents to flow, which causes hum. Oh man, it's bad news trying to find ground loops. It really is. Just
get rid of all the
ground. It's a 20-minute thing.
Just get rid of the ground.
Get rid of the ground.
Yeah, get rid of everything.
That'll solve it.
Some people do that. They put those cheater plugs in.
Yeah,
you just
not
cut
a good
off.
idea.
That's not the right approach. I don't recommend that.
Just cut them all. Yeah, cut all the ground plugs out. Yeah. What could happen?
A fair bit.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Not recommended.
Don't do that.
I had one computer that was a cheap computer, right? Standard, like 200-300 watt switch mode power supply in the thing. And I had an IEC with the ground prong broke off it, as you do, laying around, right? And I just plugged in with that, not thinking of it. And the keyboard was energized.
Okay.
With like 60, 70 volts. I measured it, right? I was touching the keyboard. I was like, why is this keyboard shocking me?
That's
and I measured, why is there 60 volts AC on this keyboard?
Yeah.
I plugged in a grounded cable and it went away.
Yeah.
So some of these cheap power supplies, that's a
and that happens with audio too.
It does.
Yeah.
Amps, preamps, anything could do that. A tube amp in particular, you got hundreds of volts on that thing just waiting to get you.
And it'll go through the interconnect.
It'll find a place to go.
Yeah.
If it's improperly grounded or improperly connected, and you've got some leakage there.
Yeah. We saw that
of voltage.
Someone at a show, like one of the rooms down next to us, they had an amp that was putting out voltage through the interconnect, and it took out their preamp.
Yeah.
And so they're like, why doesn't everything's working? Why are we not getting any audio? And the preamp was fried.
Preamp. Yeah. Which is the last thing you think would happen.
Yeah, right.
Things going backwards and breaking instead of going forward.
Mm-hmm. A couple of people brought this up in another video where we talked about similar-ish topics. What about online UPSs? And I could see the merit there, right? Because it's kind of like a power regenerator. And
that's tricky.
An online UPS actually just effectively charges a battery with the wall power and then uses that battery to make new AC power.
It's always regenerating power.
Always running, yeah.
It's never using the line.
They're not quite made for the same degree of isolation that you get in high-end like hi-fi regenerators, but they are made for power protection, equipment protection, and to make sure that they're always on and they have 0 millisecond switching time. They're expensive.
Yeah.
They can be very expensive. You could get them affordably, used, secondhand, and sometimes new old stock.
But you got to know what you're dealing with.
Yes.
You got to be able to replace the batteries and get the proper batteries.
But this is a thing you see people bring up. I think it has some merit. If you have extreme issues and there's nothing you could do about it, it may have some value.
Well, PS Audio makes the regenerators.
But yeah, something like that is kind of what you want.
They're the only ones I think that are in the audio biz actually make something that's made for audio.
Yeah.
A regenerator that's made to regenerate 120 volts or 240. So that's probably your best bet because they've kind of been doing it for a while. And chances are those things are quiet enough where it's, the problem we run into with the commercial stuff is at what point do they get pure sine enough where they're not adding noise to the system? In other words, are they hurting more than they're helping?
That's the trouble, right? You got to have especially bad power issues for it to probably be a good idea.
That's where they're useful. Is you've got brownouts all the time and stuff like that. That's really where you need to regenerate, because that's the only way to solve it. You can't. Conditioners don't do anything.
Right.
With that.
If your grid quality is just bad, it doesn't matter how many wires you run.
Yeah, you're flat topping where you're
it is what it is. You get a lot of that.
Yeah.
You get a lot of distortion coming in off the grid in areas that are very dense with bad infrastructure. And unfortunately, that's common in some parts of the world. Certainly it is in some parts of the denser regions in the U.S. as well.
That causes actually toroidals to physically hum, where you get hum out of the chassis. You get the sine wave squared off a little bit.
You could get some issues like
DC
that.
offset gets into the power transformers.
Yeah, I saw someone online talking about that. They had to take a scope to their power, and they're like, oh, yeah, the flat tops.
Yeah.
And they're like, because their transformers were humming.
And there's not much you can do about it other than regenerate power.
Right.
Create your own power.
Online UPS and hope the THD isn't a problem, or go to a high-end solution like something PS Audio makes. Or
I think we're getting a little too deep into this for most people.
Well, what if you live next to an AM radio station?
Oh, well, that could be an issue. I'm about
pretty close.
I'm about 2 miles away from a low power AM station.
Yeah, it's only what is it, like a couple hundred watts?
No, it's more than that. It's always in the kilowatt range.
At least I think it's only a couple.
It's probably
hundred.
like drops to, I don't know what it is, but we're talking, it's enough power.
That guy's still transmitting?
Yeah, it's like a country western, and I'm a few miles away, and it doesn't bother anything really, but like I just added something in the system. I forgot what, and no shit, when I turn the amps off to the speakers, I'm hearing the AM radio station.
Yeah, you can hear it.
When I turn the amps on, they go away usually. But when I turn it off, it's like, the power supply disconnects. So it's actually getting at me in it.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
it's even really quiet.
And that's even like at night when they drop the low power on the AM station because they don't have as much listeners. So it's kind of surprising that even a few miles away, something's acting like a rectifier. Something I added.
You're probably only
system.
like a mile away, actually.
And it's funny. I got all these great cabling, all that stuff, but it's not the cable that's picking it up. It's one of the devices. It's a chassis somewhere.
You figured out what it was because you said you narrowed it down.
It's a chassis somewhere that's picking up. I think it's the tube gear. I think the tubes themselves are acting like a receiver for this.
That's what you said.
Or
it was
something.
It was like your tube preamp. You unplug that. And
right.
Fine.
Yeah, because the amps are clean and everything's cool until you connect it to this. So you get this weird shit like that, And I could solve it. I just haven't spent the time because, quite frankly, what do I care if it's playing radio when I'm not there and I turn off the amp?
So I'm probably like 3 miles away from that station.
Something.
But I don't have any tube stuff, so I don't. Nothing picks it up.
Never heard that on my deck.
Yeah.
And I never had it before until I changed out a preamp with something. So it just shows to go. It just depends on, these weird ground loops. Even with RF, it's weird stuff.
Yes.
You never know. Anyway,
live in a lead box.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Words to live by.
Copper box.
Copper
box.
Yeah, copper is much more soothing.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to live in lead.
No, probably not.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, it does sound bad. Yeah.
Anyway, I think
that went a little in depth.
Yeah, went too deep.
I would start with power. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it gets complicated. Well, power's complicated.
Look at what you're plugged into.
Yeah.
Try to make it one common source. And if not, call your local dealer and ask them if they know somebody that can deal with ground loops.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be about 20 minutes over the phone with somebody.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you everyone for watching. And don't forget, if you have any topics you want to discuss, TOTL@abyssheadphones.com. Thanks. Take care.